Hello, welcome to the Tenfold AI podcast. I'm Heather Snyder, joined by Matt Scanlon. How are you, Matt?
Excellent.
Me too. We're excited. We've got a few cool things to talk about today. This podcast is sponsored by Promode.ai. Promode is the first ever end-to-end AI-powered marketing platform specifically built for B2B companies in the mid-market who don't have internal marketing people, who are tired of using a marketing agency and want to see what AI can do for their marketing. So yeah, super stoked. I think we're going to talk a little bit about services software again, kind of the market of AI at large. We've got the inauguration on Monday. We're all like sending good thoughts and good energy for a peaceful exchange of power. I know I am.
Yeah, this is not coming out for a few weeks. This could age interestingly.
Oh yeah, that's true. Oh, well, yeah. What else can we say? The world is wild, and the world of AI in particular is the Wild West. And I mean, I think one thing we like at ProMode about the upcoming administration is how friendly, the Trump administration has been to AI. And he's got people in his corner like Elon Musk who are kind of guarding those interests and encouraging him to invest in AI and open doors and all of those things. And actually just saw an ex-CEO of, I think it was Google, talking about the importance of the US maintaining the lead in the AI race and how important it is that we not let, other empires overtake us in that race. And kind of leads to TikTok as well, which may or may not be canceled by the time this podcast comes out. But as we sit now, a few days before the inauguration and a few days before the rumored or, alleged TikTok ban, what do you think about that and how it connects to AI and this whole landscape?
Well, okay, so I think of as it relates to the incoming administration and their views on AI. Like, why is this important? So there's kind of a few things to unpack here. There's like a national security interest, right? And then there is I'm increasingly viewing this arms race as I see this AI technology as becoming like a utility, right? Or a good that a country would trade. So similar to, there are countries that have natural gas, they have crude oil, there are countries that export their wheat, their grains, things like that. And these become strategic advantages. I see AI technology, specifically like GPU clusters and large language models, as being a country's like almost on par with like a natural resource. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're seeing from Grok and OpenAI. Like it's best to think about them as like foundational utilities. We're just so familiar with these chat interfaces that we forget that is just the form that they release this thing into the wild. Like there's underlying foundational models that exist as compute resources. It's not the chat GPT that you use. It's these underlying models, the underlying GPU clusters that can become almost like a natural resource of a country.
Yeah.
So I really think that as a strategic advantage of the United States having U.S. companies be the primary providers of that, quote unquote, natural resource is an important thing. It's a valuable export for us. And so I think that we should be investing in that technology from that standpoint.
So you're saying GPUs are the new GDP?
Yeah, well, exactly. 100%. Like if we can figure out the energy around it, if we can figure out how to, I mean, all of these companies are figuring it out. Like they are all trying to be the like the railroad company. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
laying road across the United States digitally, in the form of GPU clusters and large language models and machine learning. I think that would be a great thing for the United States to be, for US companies to be the primary providers of that technology to the world. Uh, so
Yeah.
I'm
But I
very
think
much,
yeah, and we talked about in one of our very first podcasts, we were highlighting, I think was it a Salesforce convention of some kind? And the guy was talking about how they're managing GPUs in China more efficiently. And they're able to, with their processes, use far less energy to get similar outputs. Necessity is the mother of invention. They didn't have certain resources and funding. And so they had to get really creative because they couldn't afford to use AI the way that we're using AI. And I'm like totally reducing that down to my level in that explanation. It's like in this arms race, it's not just, who has the most money thrown at them. It's who is, more strategic in all the ways.
I'm hopeful that, like, thankfully we're starting to see a turnover amongst elected officials in the United States that are not dinosaurs. We're getting like smart advisors in the White House. But I just think I'm eager to see people that understand this technology and just aren't like afraid of it. I mean, you've got like fucking sitting senators that are like worried that somebody's going to build an account because they have a $20 a month OpenAI subscription. I'm like, give me a
Yeah.
fucking, like, please learn how this stuff works, because you're
Yeah.
going to killing very important infrastructure that could be a strategic advantage for our country just because you simply don't understand what's going on.
Right. While other nations are not killing it and are succeeding. And that's kind of where TikTok comes in. And I have my own theories about TikTok and why it is being banned or why certain people want it to be banned. What do you think? And this is a little bit off of AI, a little bit off of marketing, but very, I don't know, it affects millions of people, hundreds of millions of people around the world. Um, and they certainly do use machine learning and AI in the algorithms of TikTok. But why do you think, certain people want to ban it?
Yeah. Well, okay, full disclosure, I'm not a TikTok user, not really a social media user. And that is because I am very susceptible to well-tuned, I have hyper-specific interests. And so for me, machine learning algorithms get their hooks in me very quickly.
That's
So
funny.
I was probably like 6 years ago, I was like, I cannot have this be a part of my life. And so so only social media I use. Well, now LinkedIn, now we've got a company that needs, we need to be. So that's like, I've added that into the mix. And then I have a YouTube account that I use that I force myself to log into. So I can't, it's not open. It's not signed in. History's turned off. Like, just telling you where I am.
Well, you're like that kid. So I was homeschooled growing up and I knew a lot of other homeschooled kids. And we were, I would say, more on the like normally adjusted side in my family. Like we had a TV. It was before the days of social media, but we had, a TV that we would watch and it wasn't a novel thing to us, but occasionally we'd have, other homeschooled kids come over who didn't have TVs and you could not peel them away. Like they would just stare at it like in a catatonic state for as long as you'd let them because they weren't used to having TV. So I imagine you being like that with social media.
It's a generation. To me, I see it as a generational thing. Like I talked to my niece, she's like 19 years old. She's in college. When I saw her over Christmas, I said, "What's your TikTok algorithm like?" And she had such an awareness of that this is an algorithm that I tune, and she's got such a better understanding of, like, she has a much better ability to say, I don't like this part of my algorithm. I'm going to proactively sort of retune the things that are suggested to
Yeah.
me. I don't, to me, it is just fucking, it's like Halloween and I'm just going door to door and it's all candy, no self-control.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is TikTok being banned? I think fundamentally TikTok did something brilliant with their algorithm that made it. So what TikTok did, I don't know if people know this, but one of the key features that makes their machine learning algorithm different than others is that when a user first signs up, they intentionally have those users' first content pieces become viral. So it's not a purely like engagement driven algorithm. It eventually decays off into that. But every new user gets the experience of like hundreds of thousands of views on a thing.
Mm.
And that's done intentionally. So as a result of that, you have created a highly powerful algorithm that people from the minute they get on it are very hooked into it. So it's very finely tuned. And oftentimes, if you know, like you start using a tool that is, or a feed is provided by algorithm, you notice that it takes a while as a user. If you think about this from a UX perspective, it takes a while for it to become like addictive for you. And TikTok, knowing that that would be the case, said, okay, well, we can make somebody go viral, quote unquote, artificially go viral within a week or two of them signing up. That will get them to stay on the platform until that virality decays. And then we've got an algorithm for them that has them coming back to consume content on the platform. So that in mind, I think that the underlying reason that there's a TikTok ban on the table is simply because it is so good. It is so powerful. It is so effective, and just, it can't. And so there's a fear there. I mean, like their algorithm, their machine learning is so finely tuned that you can manipulate it. I mean, it just is good. And that's like my opinion on why it's being banned. It's shrouded in national security, foreign owned companies, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, it is just that it is so good is the reason the ban's on the table.
Okay. And isn't it so good because the app is sort of getting data from many, many, many sources inside of your device?
Mm-hmm.
So that algorithm is fine-tuned more quickly because from the jump, as soon as you open the TikTok app for the very first time, that app is talking to, your Facebook and your um, Google search history, or, whatever cookies you have stored in your device. Like, I don't even know all the different tentacles of TikTok that are connected to other things. Like um my fiance's TikTok feed. It's very fun to like swap phones. Let me see what yours is. His is all like trucks and hunting and, you know, like dad jokes and stuff like that is very him. Um, and then mine is very different. Like, but it learns who you are so quickly, which then becomes addictive. But when I think about, what else could the government ban, right? They could ban sugar. They could ban caffeine. They could ban fast food, other things that are specifically engineered to hit that dopamine center in your brain that are not good for you, but people keep doing it because it's so good. It's hitting all the notes that from an evolutionary perspective we are designed to respond to, like like a bell in a dog, right? But the government doesn't ban those things because they are profitable and they are functional, right? Like people aren't just dropping dead from drinking one Coke, but years of drinking Coke and you're probably going to have diabetes.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I realize this kind of gets into our own personal like worldview of politics, and do we think people are basically good or basically not good, and is the government on our side or not, all that stuff. I just think it's interesting that if they're banning TikTok only because it's so good, that doesn't quite make sense to me. But what I
Well,
think,
let me
and
re
okay, go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah.
So number one, unlike the other social media platforms, they built this machine learning from day one. So they had the ability to observe all of the different ways that you could optimize for engagement and optimize for time on the platform. Whereas everybody else kind of had to do that retroactively. So if you've ever built software, you know that going back in time and changing fundamental aspects of recommender systems, especially, is a massive pain in the ass. And if you start something new from day one and you have observed how these other tools work, you're going to create a much more powerful platform. Secondly, the medium and the speed at which and the volume at which things are consumed, and therefore updating this recommender system, it can shift. I mean, when I say it's good, I mean, this thing can shift millions of people's view overnight. I mean, I think that we saw this. I mean, I think we saw this with Trump campaigning. You had a couple of Gen Z influencers like have Trump on TikTok, and like that shifted the young vote in a matter of weeks in the recent election.
Uh-huh.
That's I mean, if you're a part of a legacy institution, you want things to remain as predictable and status quo as possible. Like predictability is good for markets, it's good for government. And now all of a sudden you have a tool whose machine learning is so sophisticated that you can see every pollster be upset by 2 weeks on TikTok, like will upset like the outcomes of elections. So I say
Yeah,
that good, that's what I'm talking about. The algorithm
for
is
sure.
fucking.
Yeah, I think the cynic in me says TikTok is being banned because it's too good, meaning because it's too effective at spreading information. And it takes control completely away from the mainstream media, even more than it already is. Like the drones in New Jersey, that whole thing, right? And other places around the country, I don't think that would have gotten nearly the attention if it weren't for TikTok in particular.
Absolutely.
And the
Absolutely.
ease of connecting and corroborating stories with people thousands of miles away. And immediately that For You page is queuing up, oh, I just made a video about that. Well, here you go. Here's somebody else saying the same thing. And so you can build such a loud voice so quickly and connect people. And that's very scary if you're a government, right? Like that's especially when you have all the other economic factors and people being not happy and fires and eat the rich kind of talk in the mix, like French Revolution kind of stuff.
You
Time,
hit the.
yeah. However, the pragmatic person in me says they're banning it because of money. It's just because of money. Because like truly, if China, if TikTok has all this data on all of us, millions of data points on every single person who's ever used TikTok, they have everything they need to build Google's new competition. Bigger, better, more accurate. Like they can overtake Google from a data standpoint. And I think Google's really behind. And I'm sorry, Google, if I'm wrong. I don't know anything. I'm just a marketing girl. But I think it's quite possible. It's more of a economic thing that, hey, we don't want China to own a search engine that competes with Google because national security, sure, like data is valuable, but also Google's a $2.3 trillion company that contributes to our GDP in a big way. And, we don't want US citizens using foreign search engines and taking the data out of the country.
You're hitting the nail on the head. It is. And I think that the data piece of it, I don't think is as important. Okay. So like the data piece is, I think you might be a little bit off. Like okay, perfect example. I have a guitar tuner app on my phone. I've got 30 Chrome extensions. I've got like all of the data that we're afraid is being aggregated through TikTok. I promise you all of these little ticky-tacky apps that you use for things, it's just a kind of a niche. If you've got a scanner on your phone and it scans a thing into a PDF, they already have your data. Like your data is aggregated through those tiny like apps that you use that you don't even think about, extensions that you downloaded forever ago. It's your guitar tuner. It is your the thing you use to, now the iPhone has it built in, but there used to be an app where you could measure the length of a room, right? Like those apps are all aggregating data. They only exist to aggregate data. That's the only
Yeah.
purpose. We're building an app, we're selling this data, and we're like solving a niche problem, and we're going to get 1 million people here, 1 million people there. Like enough people download this guitar tuner, and then we're aggregating user data that way,
Mm-hmm.
But I think you hit the nail on the head, is that the primary lobby for this ban is coming from TikTok competitors. It's not
Sure.
well-meaning. It's not like well-meaning senators that are looking out for national security interests. It is
Right.
their donors saying that like this is a product that is more powerful than ours.
Yeah. And these senators, like they're not highly technical people. And I wouldn't expect them to be, right? And they're just being told whatever, these lobbyists want to tell them. And how do they know? Like, I have a hard enough time, and I've been in the digital space. And like when you tell me certain things about AI, sometimes I just have to say, okay, cool. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't take the 101 course on that particular, you know, data management, whatever. Like, can't know everything and have deep expertise in every single thing. So at some point, if you're going to tell me something about AI that's happening, I'm just going to have to say, I believe you. In the same way a senator would have to say, okay, Google lobbyist, that sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Let's vote against this.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. Just personally, we just bought a new house, and I was doing some research on my future neighbors, just looking them all up.
Yeah.
Looking them all up, and because I'm like, hey, you want to know, are there kids around near my kids' ages? Is there somebody I know already? Like what might I have in common with the people in the cul-de-sac, right? And it's funny because this neighborhood where we bought a house was historically a lot of like financial advisors, salespeople, business owners. I don't know, pretty white collar doctors, lawyers, that kind of people in this particular neighborhood. I'm looking up all the neighbors, it's like all software engineers. There's like 6 software engineers within like a, 100-foot radius of the house. I'm like, okay, this is a sign of a shifting economy.
It's
We got
funny.
senior software engineers living where, the doctors and lawyers and, those kind of people used to live.
Yeah, that block party is going to be a blast.
Yeah. And I realize that's been the case for a while in places like Silicon Valley, right? But we're in Kansas City. We're in the middle of the country. And I'm probably just newly aware of this thing that, I don't know, I just hadn't seen that phenomenon yet. I thought it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, might don't tell them that you're using AI to do. Don't tell me you're using AI to do development in your company. Might get some
Right.
hate.
I don't know. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if I can carry a conversation with them. Uh, no, so kind of shifting to more of a market watch, something we've talked about a lot is services software and how it's a new category. It's not the software as service of old. It's this totally new category. And you and I were just talking yesterday, and I wanted to bring it up here. It's interesting from a sales perspective. I've sold agency engagements, marketing agency scopes of work, and now selling ProMode, which is this services software AI platform, very different price points, same audience, same solution, different price points, and different way of managing the client, different client relationship, really, right? And I've really been thinking about it a lot because being sort of the tip of the spear of ProMode and selling it, I keep my ear to the ground. Like, what are people thinking and feeling about software, about agencies, about marketing? What's going on here? And something kind of clicked yesterday. And it kind of boils down to the sales process. So with agencies, it's a consultative sales process, right? Typically longer conversations over a longer period of time before you get a client, and then more communication face to face or over a video call with the client after they are closed, right? You're consulting. Yes, there's work happening in the background as well, but it's a lot of client FaceTime. And then SaaS, historically, like a CRM, a marketing tool, like MailChimp, right? Something like that is sold very different. It's not a consultative sales process. In my school of sales, it was called a unique selling proposition, USP versus consultative. And with a USP sales goal, you're having fewer conversations with the prospect. You're usually going through a sales deck that's very finely tuned to address all of the common questions and objections and benefits of the tool. You're unpacking those, you're prescribing it to the person you're talking to, and the goal is to close that within 1 to 3 tops calls, right? And then send them off to CSR, customer service rep, and be managed, after that. Usually very light touch, right?
Yeah.
Like email communication, text notification, maybe, but not like status calls or consultative type conversations after that sale. And so then from a marketing perspective, and this is where the light bulb kicked in, because I knew the sales piece, I'd already chewed on that. From a marketing standpoint, noticing that agencies or consultative sales models, marketing agencies make everything in their marketing, how they explain what they do, very complicated. It's very elaborate. Their scopes of work are usually very long with lots of details. Here's what our SEO is. We're going to do this many backlinks and this much, meta tagging and metadata and schema cataloging, and like getting into the details, exactly what will be done, how long we're going to spend every month doing it. We're going to make this seem like the hardest thing that's ever been done. Don't you not want to do it yourself? Give us $2,000 a month for that one service, right? And
Yeah, I'm pulling.
that's,
By the way, a graph that I sent you recently. I think you'll remember it.
yeah.
Oh, you're gonna love this.
And it's kind of like the longer the scope of work, the more you can expect to pay for it.
Uh-huh.
They're training their prospect to expect a high price tag with this very elaborate dog and pony show of everything you're going to get. We're going to do social listening to know what your social posts need to be about. We've got a team of graphic designers. We've got a team of this, and we invest in all of these tools. And I know how to speak that language because I've sold that hundreds of times, but I didn't even realize what I was doing when I was doing it. I didn't realize I was trying to warrant the price tag by making everything sound so goddamn hard. It's
Mhm.
unfathomable. You're over, and I'm sure there's like a cute adage to explain all of this. It's not coming to mind, but you're over explaining it to the point of so much confusion in the prospect that they don't even have any questions.
Mhm.
They're like, I wouldn't know where to begin with a question. But it seems like you guys have it figured out because there's a lot of words in this proposal, right?
Okay.
Go ahead. Do you
To
want to?
highlight,
Yeah.
I really do want to highlight this. So we had, I think you'll remember this. So okay. To provide a little context here, what had happened is somebody had come to us and had a client of theirs. This is a consultant, and they had showed us these like SEO ranking reports, right? These fucking reports, Heather, are the bane of my existence. I like in my previous role, this is the type of shit that people would send me. And it was interesting because there's like the people that provide these reports, these software tools that provide these reports are, it seems like every one of them, I've seen 100 different companies that do these reporting on the SEO health of a website. And I swear there's a different one for just justifying the existence of an agency. I imagine an
Yeah.
agency has like 30 different reporting things that will make your website seem so fucked up that they're the only ones that can solve it. So anyway, this guy sends us one of these reports. What do you think? I think that we can get this website fixed for $5,000. And the report
Mm,
had all these like complex e-commerce level SEO rankings. And, it's like they get a D minus and that's in red. And he's showing this to me and I'm like, how many people are actually searching for the thing that this website does? Like, okay, let's say you spend all of this money and you optimize it. What is the chunk of potential searches that you would ever get for this? And it was a regional thing. I think it was the company could only operate in like 2 states. And so I ran the report for those 2 states. Who was actually searching for the thing this company does? And there was no data available. So I expanded it to the entire United States. And so
mhm.
I made this graph as I was being a little bit of a smart ass when I made it. But I was like, okay, you're going to go through all of this work to give this company an e-commerce level, like search catalog where let's just look at it compared to dog grooming and quarter zip fleece. That was a nod to you, Heather. And
Thank you.
I was like, look at the search. So the blue line is what this company does. The red line is dog groomer. And the yellow line here is quarter zip
Yeah.
fleece.
That
So
uptick
I
in
just want to
quarter
point one
zips.
thing out.
Well, I was just going to say the uptick in quarter zips in like November there was me. That was me. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I searched it 1,000 times.
I was actually going to say that in June of 2024, more people in June, mind you, middle of summer in the United States, more people were searching for quarter zip fleece than were searching for what this company does. And
Mhm.
this is it highlights the point that none of these agencies want to work with e-commerce because they actually have to deliver. That company's bottom line depends wholly on the SEO of that website. And those e-commerce companies are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a month for search. So SEO is in the news. People know it. They want to be found on Google. They think that's how their customers find them. But guess what? This is a graph that nobody is ever showing these customers because then these customers say, well, how can we justify several grand a month for SEO? Like nobody finds us this way. We
Right.
don't need any of this,
Yeah.
right? Like this is,
Let me just,
they don't, yeah, go ahead.
well, I just want to interject real quick. Reason why agencies who serve B2B mid-market insist on selling you SEO. It is the most profitable line of service in their business.
100%.
Agencies, I'm sorry, if you're a full service digital marketing agency who specializes in B2B, And that usually only means they're not good enough for e-com. That's really all it means, usually. I mean, there's a few that are like great at content, great at white papers, and like those are enterprise level B2B agencies. There are some of those, not many. Most that serve the mid-market, they serve B2B because they can sell them easier and they can service them easier. And the most profitable thing they can sell a mid-market B2B company is SEO. It
Yes.
takes less time internally, and time is all they're selling. So they need less internal staff to run SEO for clients. And they know you don't know how to check if they've actually done it or not.
Oh,
Until
yeah.
you and I come along and we take a look under the hood of their website and look at things and we're like, yeah, your SEO hasn't even been done. This thing you should have never bought because it doesn't work because you have 50 searches a year for what you do in the continental US. They didn't even perform that long proposal full of tasks that they said they were going to do every single month. They didn't even do it. And they knew they were betting on you not being able to check that.
Uh,
It should be illegal.
Listen, I didn't know. Promo has been an eye-opening experience. I kind of regret not doing more of this nonsense when I was working in the web development space. I mean, I could have been making a lot more money,
Yeah,
apparently.
well, I'll just add real quick since I'm on one a little bit. Oh gosh, it just slipped my brain. Oh, I was gonna say something important and now it's gone. Hate when that happens, but it does.
Your amygdala overrode your
Yeah,
prefrontal cortex.
totally.
Well,
I know what I was gonna say. Okay, got it. We can like cut that, I'm sure. So, if you think about it, if you're a business owner, there's certain people in your corner that you need. You need an attorney, an accountant, HR, you know, you need a bank, you need all of these things kind of considered for people on retainer for those things or on staff, whatever. There are licenses and governing bodies for all of those categories. You have to pass the bar to be an attorney. You have to uphold a certain level of practice to keep your license. If you're an accountant, you have to be a CPA. There's exams and regulations and rules to become that thing and to remain that thing. So there's a quality control of the industry kind of built into the system. In marketing, there isn't. You can get a Google certification. It doesn't, there is no governing body that you have a license from that is saying, we are going to revoke your license if you have bad practices. That doesn't exist. So marketing is the world of buyer beware. It just is. And I think far too few business owners realize that. And they think that anyone who has a marketing agency is good at marketing. If they have a long list of clients, they must be good. And it's like, think again.
yeah.
There's nobody checking on them.
So I've been going through this exercise with Maggie. We've been, building promo, prospecting, figuring out our messaging and things like that. And I've been, one thing that I like to do with a business is for me, it's really important so that I understand the value proposition inside and out is to have like a very arrogant, in a weird way, like a very arrogant statement for me. Like I won't say it publicly, but I'm getting ready to, but it's a way that I need to conceptualize in my mind the first principles foundational part of this business. That is like, this is the reason you should buy it. This is the customer, period, full stop. If you don't agree with that, there's something flawed in your logic. I've been looking for that. What is that thing for Promote? I need to get to that place. Right. And so like this week, as we were just having these conversations, I finally came to it. And it was, if you're paying between $2,000 and $10,000 a month for digital marketing services, you are a fool to not use promo. Like, and I truly do feel that. And like, let's go through this exercise though, because if you're spending, okay, in agency and working with an agency land, that's a pretty small engagement, right? So what does that mean? It means you're not getting enough.
Right.
Like at $200 an hour, you are not getting enough for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're spending less than that, promo will be way too big of a leap for you, right? Like if like internally or with an agency, if you don't even have somebody on staff who gets paid to manage your digital presence, promo is going to feel like the most ridiculous, scary expense you've ever made. But if you're in that spot between 2 and 10 grand and you're spending that amount of money on staff or with an agency, you are not getting anything reasonable. You don't start getting anything that moves the needle until you're north of 10K. And when I say
Mm-hmm.
north of 10K, I would say that the category between $10,000 a month, if that's not internally, you're also overpaying.
Yeah.
At 350K, agency engagements start to actually meaningfully move the needle. There's a 10K to 50K range where if that's your in-house team, they're probably fucking rock stars, in which case don't fire them, don't use promo. But if you're in that range of 2 to 10K, you would be foolish not to use a tool like this because you're either
Mm-hmm.
spending too much time on it or you are overpaying for what you're getting.
Yeah. Your output's so low, you might as well do nothing.
Exactly. Delete your socials, like legitimately
Yeah.
do it. Like that's,
Yeah. Yeah. But so, yeah, so that was we're talking about comparing agency or consultative marketing, how a marketing agency goes to market compared to a SaaS, something like a MailChimp or HubSpot, right? And HubSpot's a very different price point, but it is still a SaaS. Um, and it's interesting because in their go-to-market messaging, they're not complex and elaborate and like the consultative agency model. It's the opposite. It's very simple, too simple. Like, buy it now, see results in 2 weeks, like almost as seen on TV style, right?
solves all your
Um,
problems. One click of a button, problems are solved. Yeah.
right. They make it seem very easy. And if you've ever been on a demo with a CRM, a salesperson who's showing you a CRM, and I'm a sucker for those. I'm a sucker for those every time. I want to buy every CRM every time I see it because I'm
I
like, oh,
know this.
yeah, I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. That I've not. This is going to solve everything. And I know enough now to be wise to that because the first time you do that, then you realize I have to customize this whole thing. The demo I was looking at was a completed instance of this CRM, fine tuned with all the data in it and all the triggers built into it and all the customizations done. So yeah, it's amazing. But now I've essentially just bought a box of Legos and have to assemble it all myself. And I don't know how to do that. And then here come the customization fees thereafter. So it's just funny, the difference in how these SaaS companies market themselves and talk about themselves compared to more of a consultative sale. And where I think Promote fits in and other companies in our category, the services software category, where it's like, yes, there is a platform, it is software, there are AI agents and retrieval augmented generation. It is a software, but it's also a department solution. We are going to train you how to use it. There's some consultation involved, and the price point is kind of in between a SaaS and a consultative. So it's just really interesting navigating that. And I think I didn't really realize from how many angles we would have to navigate that.
Uh-huh.
Because it's not just in how I'm selling something, right? It's in how we're servicing it. It's in how we're marketing it and messaging and placing our market, like the whole business model is different because of
let's look at it from our own experience. Like, okay, we have a CRM. We are currently right now paying a consultant the equivalent of 2 years subscription. So we're paying a subscription every month to a CRM, and we are paying a consultant 2 years worth of that subscription to make it work for us. Like,
yeah,
people really do not understand that like that's the primary difference there is like, so we have built that into what we do is like, this is
hmm
a, I mean, like in general, AI, retrieval augmented generation, like there's a process of fine tuning is consultative, like very much so. And it should be like, honestly, I would say that in 2025 and probably 2026, if you're buying any kind of enterprise level AI tool that you don't understand what's going on and know how to make it work for you, like this is the category of tool. It again, it comes down to commercial value. If you want it to have commercial value for your business, this is table stakes right now because like there's no like push button out of the box thing that has enterprise value today.
right. Yeah, it's a unique challenge all around. I think it's very fun. It's very exciting, but a challenge nonetheless. But I think my message to business owners on that would be like, if you've ever looked at a marketing agency scope of work or proposal and thought, this is so confusing, I just want you to know it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
It's
intentionally.
confusing by design, so that you think that they are amazing and will spend lots of money with them. And also, conversely, if you've ever looked at a SaaS tool and thought, this looks too good to be true, you're probably right. There's probably some fine print there, but it's a different business model. An agency is trying to get, um, if they get 4 or 5 clients a month who are spending $5,000 a month, that's awesome for most digital agencies. They
Mhm.
would be thrilled with that kind of volume. But if you're dealing with a SaaS, like a MailChimp or a HubSpot or, CRM or whatever, it's a volume business. So they're going to have an offer that's very accessible, $30 a month, $20 a month, hell, free, a freemium offer. They're going to make it easy for you to one click, go ahead, give your credit card, buy the tool, and hope that you either forget that you did that. I just did that last night. I found out I had a been verified subscription of like $35 a month that I'd completely forgotten about for God knows how long. Felt like an idiot. So they're hoping you're either subscribing and forgetting and continuing to auto pay, um, or that you get in there, realize you need some help, and pay for their people to help you to the
Mhm.
tune of thousands of dollars. So that marketing is quite polarized by design because it
Yeah.
fits their business model of volume versus boutique.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't know if we really landed on anything there, but I just thought it'd be fun to kind of talk through that.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's at the end of the day, like a business owner just wants something to work. I don't want to be thinking about this. I want it to work. I want it to solve this problem. You'll go after a SaaS solution if you feel this sort of like aspirational goal to, we're going to get organized. We're going to be doing our, like, you know what I mean? And then you actually get in it and you're like, wow. I mean, we had
Yeah.
experience setting up the CRM. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you need to have tags. These tags initiate triggers. Then they create reminders. You go in, you check off those reminders. Like that takes thought and planning and a level of like organization and discipline to get the thing working. And then so then with the agency solution, they're like, well, okay, I don't have to think about all that stuff. I don't need all these tools. I just want it to work. So I'm going to pay for an agency to take care of this thing so I don't have to think about it. And then you realize that you're in the same boat. Like that's also not working for you and you're
Right.
over for it. right? Like you don't have to think about it, but I mean, you're going to leave in a year.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very true. So in our last kind of few minutes here, if you have, do you want to dive into the science piece or do you want to save that? Or
I do.
totally.
Yeah. I brought
Okay.
props.
Okay. Go for it.
So I want to talk about one thing has really been frustrating me lately is just a lack of fundamental understanding of how some of these AI systems and large language models work in general. A weird thing happened when everybody got access to ChatGPT. That became AI to them. We forget AI is a massive umbrella with a lot of things underneath of it. And yes, a chat interface, large language model falls under the AI umbrella. That's not AI though. And so
Hmm.
what I want to do is kind of explain how these large language models work. So, and how it relates to our own brains, which I think is fascinating. So, okay, you think of a large language model is like every combination of words that have ever existed ever, all stored in a single place. Okay. Now that's a lot of words and a lot of word combinations. So it'd be kind of, you can't use all of those at the same time, right? So previously, if we wanted to create associations between languages, like I've got all of my note cards here that I write stuff on. And so if there's like one concept on a note card and there's like a title to that note card, all of those concepts are on this one note card. But then I would have to like access unique note cards for each concept. Now, here's my prop. I've got this apple here. How a large language model differs is inside of this apple is every combination of words that's ever existed. And then if I want to retrieve a combination of words out of this apple, I would just find an entry point. Like I would find an entry concept in this
You're gonna,
apple.
you're gonna
And then
poke
I
that
have,
apple, aren't you?
what's that?
I said you're gonna poke that apple, aren't you?
Damn right, I'm going to poke that apple. Okay. So now there are a bunch of different ways to get words out of this apple. So if I say, write me an email to a prospect. So, okay, what this apple will do is it will retrieve just like, so a very thin slice out of the apple. So I've got this like very thin slice, you know, okay, these combinations of words, this was probably a good email to send to this prospect, right? Because my reference point entering into the apple was an email for a prospect. And so cool. That's now when people say that AI isn't creative, it doesn't do a good job, it's not as good as humans, it's because they don't know how it works. Now,
Mhm.
using that same example, remember this is 3 dimensions. So I can find my entry point in that apple and I can go deep and go very deep into that apple and extract hyper specific information. And I can do that multiple times. If I know all of the concept entry points that I need to go into, I can cut very deep slices out of the apple and then combine those. And that is how our brains actually work. So the things that like drives me fucking bonkers is when people don't understand what's going on and they just drop up. It can't replicate human cognition. So remember, we're talking about language here. So in your prefrontal cortex is where all of your working memory and your language is stored. So when you need to have a creative thought, what you're doing is you are also selecting an entry point concept for that thought. And then you're taking core samples of your memory further back in your brain to then output that language or output. But the source data that your brain is using is all of the combinations of words that you have ever read or heard or spoken.
Mhm.
That is the same data set. So the large language model works in the exact same way. It is finding an entry point of a concept, doing either a surface level sample of that concept, or it is doing a deep dive core
Mhm.
sample. But the difference is a large language model has a better working, like it has a much greater combination of words than you do stored in your brain. Your brain is primarily actually a concept filterer. And so the mechanisms of the two are the exact same. Now, where are they different? Like when people talk about human creativity, they're so far off when it comes to outputting content and word combinations. They're like just point blank wrong. An LLM is using a much broader sample set than you have available to you. Now, where humans do differ, and I will say that like where our creativity actually comes from is that we have all of this other source data. Okay. So this is the nervous system. If I'm feeling excited about something, my brain is receiving source data from my elevated heart rate, my breathing increases, maybe my palms start to sweat. And that is sending all of this very rich, high bandwidth data up to my brain. But then the minute that I communicate those feelings of excitement, I am operating a large language model. It is the minute that I speak it, that it comes out of me, that I am using the exact same process as a large language model. So I may be having richer internal experiences. This is where humans differ. My feeling of pain, my feeling of excitement. I'm getting all of these feelings from sensory data, from temperature, from like oxygen levels. So it is true that my internal experience is significantly richer and more creative than a large language model. But where people really are missing the mark is I'm talking about the moment that it leaves your body, because when a concept leaves your body, it is filtered through a large language model. And so that's the core difference that people are really missing in this whole thing of like either fear of large language models or discounting them. It is, people are correct. When we're talking about the nervous system, yes, you are more creative. You have feelings and experiences in space and time. Like your body is processing the spin of the earth. I mean, this is insane. AI will never be able to have that experience. I am talking about the minute your experience leaves your body, it goes through a ridiculous filter that you can never compete with a large language model at that moment that it leaves you.
That's so fascinating. And I love, before I met you, I had never heard anyone talk so much about the physiology of the human compared to AI. And you've talked a lot about like, the optic nerve and how important the function of the eye is when it comes to like generating images and video with AI. And you're very deep into that, information. I think it's very cool. This is the first time I've heard you compare the brain to a large language model, and it makes perfect sense to me. And it's like, to bring it back to the people who say AI isn't actually intelligent or it can't be creative. And you've countered that with saying like, well, what makes you think you're so unique, right? Like you're forming words with your brain to describe something.
Yes,
That's what's happening. What makes you think your ability to do that is not replicatable? And it's, I think, something everyone would be able to grasp is like, have you ever been through an experience with other people? Like, let's say you all saw the same car wreck or you all saw the same sunrise and
uh,
you had thoughts, feelings, emotions about that event. But you've got one guy who saw it who just says, yeah, it's nice. Because his brain doesn't have more things to say about that, right?
totally.
It's not in his biological repertoire to find fascination in the sunrise. And there are people like that, right?
To like, oh, let's highlight your example is perfect. 3 people watch the most beautiful sunrise ever together. Okay. Those 3 people for the rest of their lives, when they talk about that experience, they will have physiological, like their optic nerve will recall elements of that, that your
Yeah.
heart rate, your like you will have physiological feelings around that. But the three of you are only able to invoke those feelings because you had those physiological feelings together. The actual language that you're using to talk about it is a very crude representation of that experience, because a fourth person that didn't see that sunset would be like, yeah, sounds like a pretty nice sunset. I saw a good sunset once. Awesome
Right.
sunset. That's it.
Yeah.
So it is that moment of like, okay, communicating a concept or a creative idea, the minute that it leaves your physiology, the minute that the bandwidth of that concept goes way down. So I'm
Yeah.
not discounting people having creative, rich internal experiences. What I am discounting is their belief that somehow they possess something magical when that
Right.
experience is nearby.
Exactly. Because if one of those people who saw the sunset was, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, do you think he's going to be able to describe that sunset better than just some random dude? Well, sure, because his particular large language model, he had a very high speech code, just like all authors do, right? High speech code, very loquacious, like can call to mind any word he's ever heard. And, I have a pretty high speech code. Like I use a very wide range of words and have my whole life. Don't ask me to do math, but we all have things that we're better at. So, which makes me good at marketing. Like I can do really cool messaging stuff for clients because my brain is instant recalling words that most people never use. That's
Mhm.
just my brand of nerd. Um, but it's like, why wouldn't that be? If you have an Apple, a database that has every word that's ever been uttered, and the most sophisticated machine learning, which is really like, pattern creation, recognition, predictable reasoning, kind of, I'm just guessing here a little bit, using my own words to describe that. Like, of course, you could communicate that sunrise as well as a really great author. Would it be as unique as the most creative writer ever? No. And thank God we have those people, right?
Yeah. Well, a good writer is somebody who is like very loquacious. What they're actually doing is they're mapping physiological concepts to words, you know? And so when I hear somebody say AI isn't creative, it's not putting something good out, all that tells me is that you don't have a good physiological mapping to these concepts. Like you actually are not creative because you cannot map these physiological experiences to various entry points into the model. All you're
Uh-huh.
saying is, hey, write me an email. And then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this email isn't good. It is
Right.
no. You need to map the problems and the feelings and the state of mind of that email's recipient. And you're
Yeah.
not doing that. And that takes multiple steps and multiple filters. So
Right.
you're actually the one that's not creative. Quit blaming AI. You just don't have a good concept mapping of physiological experiences. And if you had a better one, you would say that this is a phenomenal tool that helps me map my physiology to words. Okay, I've got to go. I'm
Fascinating.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt. Yeah.
well, it's good.
Cool. Well, just to wrap it up, I'm Heather Snyder. This is Matt Scanlon. This has been the Tenfold AI podcast, helping you avoid shiny object syndrome in the red ocean of AI. This podcast is sponsored by Promode.ai, the first ever end-to-end AI-powered marketing platform specifically built for mid-market B2B companies. Check us out, our website, LinkedIn. You can find us everywhere, and we'll see you next time.